Hi everyone, it's Beth again from the West Dallas Public Library. Welcome to episode 2 in our Who HQ book club for the summer. And today it's episode 2 of What Was Pompeii? So yesterday we read chapters 1 and 2, and that is available on our YouTube page if you didn't get to see that one. And then tomorrow I'll continue on, and Monday through Friday we'll get through this entire book. And next week we'll start a new book. All right, so chapter 3, A Buried City. Some people did manage to escape from the destruction of Vesuvius. If they returned to Pompeii later on, it was not to rebuild their houses. There was no hope of that. Pompeii, as they had known it, was gone forever. Survivors came to search for valuables left behind in the rush to escape. They dug down into the volcanic ash and tried to tunnel into their homes. They took away material like marble and bronze that could be reused when they built new homes elsewhere. At the same time, looters arrived, eager to steal whatever things of value could be unearthed. They too dug tunnels to houses. Tunneling, however, was very dangerous. Sometimes the tunnels collapsed and killed whoever was inside them. After a while, the area where Pompeii lay was buried and left abandoned. All the survivors and all the children of the survivors died off. Looters stopped coming, and eventually there was no one alive who remembered the town or what it had been like to live there. Pompeii was no longer seen as a real place. It became a myth, a city that had vanished. Over time, the layers of volcanic ash turned into soil, fertile soil that was good for growing crops. So the land above the lost city became covered with farms and vineyards once again. People began to call the area Civitas, which means city. They were living and farming on top of ancient ruins, though no one knew that. Chapter 4, Discoveries. In 1599, workers digging a tunnel under Civitas came upon something very surprising. Walls with pictures painted on them and some marble slabs. The worker in charge of the tunnel digging thought perhaps they had come upon ruins from an ancient Roman house. But no one bothered to investigate further. More than 100 years later, in 1748, an engineer named Joaquin de Alcubierre arrived at the same spot with a crew of 24 men. The King of Naples was building a museum, and the king hoped to fill it with treasures from ancient Roman times. Not far from Civitas, Alcubierre and his team had unearthed some treasures. But everything had been encased in rock that was hard as cement. It was terribly difficult to dig anything out. So Alcubierre decided to try excavating in Civitas instead, where the layers of ash and pumice were much easier to dig through. Although Alcubierre was disappointed by the few things discovered, he left a small team to continue digging. In 1750, a young engineer joined the men at Civitas. His name was Carl Weber. Alcubierre had used crude methods to try to unearth objects. Often he used explosives. He also kept no records of what he discovered or where it had been found. Weber was different. He understood that history might be lying preserved right under his feet. Digging had to be done carefully, layer by layer, starting at the top and working slowly downward. Also, he kept a log of where and when every object was found. Weber's methods are still used by archaeologists today. An archaeologist studies objects from the past in order to learn about the people and culture of a particular time. Carl Weber began supervising the digging at Civitas. It took 5 years before he made a major discovery. His men unearthed a large townhouse. They named it the House of Julia Felix. The house covered an area of an entire city block. That's a big house. In 1763, Weber made 2 more significant discoveries in Pompeii. The Herculaneum Gate and the Via del Tombre, or Streets of Tombs. During this time, Weber also mapped out an important house, the Villa of the Papyri, in a nearby Roman town. Until then, the King of Naples hadn't been much interested in the excavation at Civitas, but now he was. He directed Weber to continue the work there, and his careful work paid off. Slowly tunneling down through the volcanic ash, the workers uncovered the remains of a crowded ancient Roman town. There had been 2 main streets that crossed each other. Archaeologists named them Via del Abbondanza, that's Italian for Streets of Plenty, and Via Stabiana, which led in the direction of the nearby town, the Stabia. Oh my goodness, sorry, I have an itch. On Via del Abbondanza were the ruins of many homes, shops, and restaurants. Many side streets, also filled with homes and stores, branched off from the Via del Abbondanza in a neat grid. Clearly, this had once been a prosperous town. For years, the digging went on. Then, in 1763, an inscription reading Re Publicae Pompeiorum was found. In Latin, the language of the Romans, these words meant the Commonwealth of Pompeii. Here was clear proof that identified the site as Pompeii. Weber and his men were not uncovering just any town from ancient Roman towns. They found Pompeii, the city that Vesuvius had destroyed. Chapter 5. More discoveries. Carl Weber died suddenly in 1764 and was replaced by Francesco La Vega. Under his direction, more and more of Pompeii was revealed. La Vega's discovery of a Roman temple in 1764 made him famous. It was the most complete Roman temple ever found. It had not been looted and had all of its furnishings and some spectacular frescoes, which are paintings done right on the walls. In Pompeii, the largest places of worship were the Temple of Apollo, the Temple of Venus, and the Temple of Jupiter. The people of Pompeii believed that Venus was their special protector. Did they think that Venus had forsaken them the day Vesuvius erupted? Okay, blurb. Gods and goddesses. In Pompeii, there were many temples where crowds could come and pray to the different Roman gods and goddesses. At home, people also kept small shrines so they could worship in private. The most powerful Roman gods were like superheroes. If ordinary humans did anything to displease them, the gods were quick to punish them. Jupiter was the king of the gods. His wife was Juno. They had many children who were also gods. Mars was known as the god of war. Neptune was the god of the sea. Venus was the goddess of love, and Apollo was the god of the sun. Minerva was the goddess of the moon. Vulcan was the god of fire. From Vulcan comes the word volcano. Okay. In 1860, Giuseppe Fiorelli was appointed director of excavations at Pompeii. He already had been working at the site for 20 years. More than any other person, Fiorelli revealed the Pompeii that visitors see today. The first thing Fiorelli did as director was remove all the mounds of dirt and debris that previous digging teams had left in the streets of Pompeii. Once this was done, the layout of Pompeii became clear. Visitors could more easily get a sense of the city as it had been before Vesuvius erupted. He also mapped out the city of Pompeii and came up with a system that identified the exact location of every house and shop. By then, about 2/3 of Pompeii, 15,000 buildings, spread out over 110 acres. It had all been uncovered. Fiorelli strongly believed that all the objects found should remain in situ. Oh, I said it wrong. You say it like this. Situ. Well, this meant leaving it where they had been found. He did not allow frescoes, statues, mosaics, or anything else of value to be carted away or sold. He opened the site to anyone who could pay a small entrance fee. Before this, only rich and powerful people had been allowed into Pompeii. The entrance fees paid for guards who watched over the site and prevented thieves from stealing anything. Fiorelli also was responsible for what are the most disturbing and yet also the most fascinating exhibits at Pompeii. He made the first plaster casts of victims caught at the exact moment they died. Oof. Victims quickly were buried under the layers of ash raining down from Vesuvius. The ash hardened around their bodies. The bodies decayed over time until only a heap of bones remained for each victim. However, the hardened ash kept the original hollowed-out shape of the body. As soon as Fiorelli's workers, digging carefully, spotted anything that looked like it might be the outline of a body, they stopped digging. A hole was drilled into the hollow cavity. Then they poured in plaster of Paris and waited for it to harden. What the plaster produced were incredibly detailed and realistic replicas of victims of the volcano. Whole families were found trying vainly to escape. One man was trying to throw his cloak over his wife to protect her. Their children and servants lay near the couple. Looking at the casts, it is easy to make out even small details, such as hairstyles or the type of sandals the person was wearing. One of the most famous casts is of a dog that was chained to a stake. He could not escape, and so he is caught, contorted, trying to frantically bite through the chain holding him. Oh, that's where we're going to stop today. Sorry, it's a sad place to stop. But we'll pick up tomorrow with shopping in Pompeii. So I'll see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock again, for episode 3 of What Was Pompeii. Bye.